we've got Johnny B. Bad coming out. He's going to get an award. And then we've got Vinny Vergas versus the British Bulldog. Then we got Cactus Jack and Vader.
Mm.
And then what a main event this is. Sting versus Paul Orndorff.
Wow.
This is a fun show, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, they guys, there was, and I've done a lot of house shows as ring announcer. There was obviously a different vibe to a house show on many levels. Of course, with the cameras there, the guys are thinking, this is going to be televised, so it's not like a real house show. But just away from the regular television, it was really cool to be able to go out with the guys and go to a show that wasn't televised. And I did a lot of those back in the JCP era. I loved them. I really did.
John Hamilton says, Tony, you abandoned us for 20 years and we missed you.
Uh-huh.
How's that saying go? How can we miss you if you never go away?
Oh.
So, yeah, I'm glad that you're back in wrestling. Jason Taylor is appreciating what we're watching here and says, I'm sad that house shows are dying in major wrestling. I did get to go to an AEW house show. I know that AEW is not running house shows right now, but man, the house show I went to was a lot of fun. I actually enjoy house shows more than TV shows. And I know there's more, matches and stories of consequence, and you get the big pyro and the screens, and it feels like a much bigger production because it is for television.
Right.
But I kind of like when the guys can not have to be as concerned about hitting their times and facing the hard cam and, are we in a break? And they can not worry as much about, hit the television truck, if you will, and they can just be in the moment and interact with the crowd. One of my favorite things about stand-up comedy is when there's spontaneous crowd work. Listen to me, spontaneity or spontaneous crowd work, like we see Cassio Kid do. But the idea that, that is now a maybe lost art in wrestling because house shows seem to be a thing of the past. Now, I guess the only thing we have like a house show now is just an indie show, right?
That's replaced it. You're right. The WWE doesn't run house shows anymore.
Not really. I mean, they do every now and again, like they did some internationally here.
Right.
Because they're on a big European tour and they've been going forever, which is why Raw's airing just in the middle of the day. But hey, at least today when they did their promos, it was an English-speaking crowd because they're in the UK. So, or London town, I believe, specifically.
Sure. Well, that's, I miss the house shows. I agree. It's just it's a different vibe to it. A lot of excitement. The guys approach it differently, and it's one of them lost arts, man. Well, it's like any other sport. I've said this many times. College football is not a football game anymore. It's a television show.
That's right.
So television has changed the dynamic of everything, and then with streaming and the money that television networks and streaming services are putting out, like, the reason college football is in the shape it's in is because all the money ESPN and CBS and, is paying for all this stuff, right? And Fox, FS1, geez, they make billions of dollars. So it's just changed. It's, they used to not take all these television timeouts, remember, back in the day?
Yeah.
But they do now. Why? Because that's where the money is.
Yeah, of course.
So it's the same thing as wrestling. These shows, the only really income you make from house shows are the gates. Or unless someone paid you to come in there. But television, you get all the commercials.
Hey, speaking of commercials, I saw a great commercial over the weekend that I thought I should share with you. Do you like steak, Tony?
Steak?
Yeah.
Not really.
Have you ever heard that people enjoy steak? Have you heard?
Yes, I've heard of that. Yes.
Steak houses. Are you familiar with that?
I've been to a steakhouse with you.
Oh, okay. Maybe we've got a steakhouse commercial that I think you would dig. Let's take a look.
I'm at the Beef and Brew on Court Street. You should come down here. Hold on a second. Bartender, you.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought this prime rib was supposed to be huge.
It's a 1 pound prime rib, ma'am.
Where? Oh my, that is a big one.
The 4-Fork 1 pound, $10.95 prime rib. First National Beef and Brew, Court Street, Watertown. We've got your beef right here.
That guy knew how to make a commercial, didn't he?
Can you believe that they used a lady's bosom as the attraction for a local steakhouse commercial? Because when I saw that, I was like, can you imagine if they did that in 2025? I don't know if it would go viral or they'd get canceled or both.
Yeah. And of course, she couldn't tell how big the steak was because it was in the shade, so to speak.
It was under the canopy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of canopy, you guys had a canopy of the Union Jack flag strapped to the back of the British Bulldog. Check out this old newspaper ad that our friend of the show, Richard Land, found for this show,
Okay.
which I thought was kind of cool. Special added attraction, Davey Boy Smith. The real event, World Championship Wrestling at the GMEX Manchester, Saturday, 13th of March at 7:30 p.m. Tickets $12.50 and $7.50. And it gives the box office line in the corner. It says, as seen on ITV every week. Also starring Sting, Van Hammer,
Yeah.
Dustin Rhodes, and the current WCW World Champion. I think that's interesting that they went with throwing Van Hammer on there rather than Rick Rude, rather than Barry Windham,
Yeah.
rather than all these, rather than Cactus Jack. Like, how, I know it feels like we're piling on Van Hammer. I don't mean to, but it's like at this point, Rick Rude was a WWF superstar. Feels like you'd want him on the poster.
Yeah. And Barry Windham was world champion, wasn't he, this time? Didn't he come out with the belt?
He came out with the international title, Tony.
Oh, the international title. Sorry.
Believe it or not, the first night of this tour, Sting won the world title from Vader. But the last night of the tour, Sting dropped it back to Vader. So he wins it on March 11th in London town, and he loses it to Vader in Dublin on March 17th.
Wow.
Can you imagine seeing Sting and Vader in a world title change on fucking St. Patrick's Day in Dublin? Like, that just feels like, if you're a wrestling fan and an alcoholic, it's like a dream come true.
Here's a 1, 2, 3. The Rude Awakening, I believe, is what we called it, didn't we?
Hey, speaking of alcohol and wrestling, did you see that Frankfort, Kentucky is putting together a Miss Elizabeth exhibit for 2 years? This is real, Tony. The First Lady of Wrestling, as you and I are recording, it opened today, March 31st. It's totally free, Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Capital City Museum in Frankfort, Kentucky. But yeah, the lovely Miss Elizabeth, Frankfort, Kentucky's own. I think that's super cool, and I hope more small communities do this and sort of embrace the heritage of pro wrestling, because, you know, they do this for a lot of actors or actresses, and they certainly do it for athletes. I mean, we've all seen those towns like, welcome to the city limits of so-and-so, home of, and, you know, and it lists that out.
Right.
But I do think that's pretty cool that they actually have a Miss Elizabeth exhibit.
I think it's great too. I was wondering if they had to get WWE approval for that.
Why would they have to do that?
Well, you know,
I
they probably
don't.
own her likeness now, right?
Nope. I can't imagine.
You never know. You just never know.
Okay. Well, maybe they'll get a cease and desist, and boy, that would be a great look.
Yeah. Or maybe they went to them and said, "You have any Miss Elizabeth memorabilia you could lend us to for the," and hopefully that's the way it was done.
Well, I know for certain that Matt Cardona has a naked Miss Elizabeth doll he could donate.
I'm sure he does.
Jacob Stimmel. I'm from Bulls Gap, Tennessee. I was looking for a house, and Jason, when I talked to him, it seemed like he knew a lot about what he was talking about, and he was a big help with anything I ever needed. It was my first time buying a house, so I didn't know what I was getting into. It was a good experience. I closed actually a week earlier than planned. Anytime I needed help with anything or had any questions, he'd answer right away and help me learn a lot too. I would gladly recommend anybody. Y'all are a big help, and if I ever go to buy a house again, I'd go with y'all again. My name is Jacob Stimmel, and I got into my first home with the team at SaveItConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.